You are listening to the Success Diaries podcast. I'm your hostess, Bree Seeley, a creative growth strategist and top entrepreneur coach on Google. The Success Diaries is your invitation to do success on your own terms. Every episode features interviews with entrepreneurs and change makers around the world living their success on their terms. A breakthrough consultant for over 20 years, creator of the I Am Powerful program, Power-Centered Leadership, and author on several books, Shannon Rae gives leaders practical tools to produce unprecedented results. A driven, passionate results junkie and liberated soul herself, Shannon Rae gives people the tools they need to liberate everything from results to relationships and ultimately themselves. Spanning 21 different industries, including startups, Fortune 500 companies, global brands, governments, and nonprofits, Shannon has taken 6 of 8 startups to profitability, sale, or acquisition, and produced extraordinary results such as 1,400% revenue increases in global companies, a $100 million raise, and 2 to 10x revenues, profits, and margins in 6 to 24 months. Shannon is a survivor of trauma herself, an urban shaman, and a CEO of 2 successful companies. She is best known for her striking combination of energy, passion, and ability to create consistent, measured excellence in others.
Hello, Success Diaries listeners. Bree Seeley here again, as always, with a fantastic guest. Shannon Rae is a personal friend of mine. In fact, she and I have been working behind the scenes for the last, 6 weeks? With another good friend of ours to develop up this really cool opportunity for you to up-level. We've developed up this, we're calling it the Trinity, because the 3 of us have come together. So if you resonate with this episode and you just fall in love with Shannon Rae and of course me, you can go to my website, breeseeley.com/Trinity to get in. It is a 3-day back-to-back days of live experiences to help you kind of get out of the chaos that's going on in the world around you and stepping more and more and more into your power. So, hello.
Hey, how are you? So excited to be here with you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be interviewing you for this. So Shannon Rae and I first met a few months ago. She was in New York, and we got to sit down at one of my favorite places. It was the first time we'd ever really truly connected. I just fell in love with your energy and your essence and our conversation. And so our development of friendship has just been such a beautiful gift to me.
Yeah, ditto, sister. You know, when you just find someone that you can vibe off their energy and you're so aligned deeply with, both, you know, on a big picture vision of what the world's really about and how to operate in business, life, it's amazing. It's a true gift.
Yeah. So, as you know, I start off every episode with the same question. How do you live a successful life? What does success mean to you?
It means personal freedom to me. Which there's a lot kind of enveloped in that, but ultimately that is my success marker. If I feel free, personally liberated, if I feel blissful, if I feel alive, which are all indicators or metrics for me of personal freedom, that's success. And that success looks differently, you know, or that sense of freedom looks differently, I think, for everyone, but that's my metric. It's not dollars, it's not bottom lines, it's not even people sometimes, it's just, am I as liberated as I possibly can be? Am I experiencing the most expansive version of me and what life has to offer me? And am I extending that to others? Am I influencing and impacting others' ability to experience that same level of personal liberation?
Brilliant. Freedom is 100% my top core value. So maybe that's why we vibe so well together. Was it always this way? Have you always been someone who has lived in your personal freedom, who has had that expansive, freedom-based lifestyle?
Well, here's what I would say. I've always been someone who's desired it, who's craved it, who's known in this, you know, in the very fabric and soul of my being that it was the highest essence of my expression. but I have far from lived it consistently. I grew up in a home where that was not my experience, by the way, super control-based environment. I lived in a marriage that, I lived through domestic violence. So my husband tried to kill me and raped me and stalked me for 18 months and all kinds of, horrific things that come with that. I've lost businesses where I've lost everything and thought, oh my gosh, and felt completely changed in multiple experiences of my life. So I don't think it's been an absolute constant experience of mine, but it has definitely been a craving of mine. And I think that experiencing the depths of the opposite of freedom and feeling deeply controlled and completely isolated and like you just don't have any choices and you don't have anywhere to turn or go to, just further anchored my desire and my craving and my commitment to it. I experience it now, but it came with a lot of, grind and a lot of work and a lot of digging deep and getting real and honest with myself, not just about what I've gone through in my life, but what part I own in that, what my responsibility is, taking ownership of every piece of my life, like radical personal ownership of every single experience that I have has been one of the primary factors in me getting to that sense of personal liberation.
I love that. And I want to come back to the radical ownership and responsibility thing. But before I do that, I just want to touch on, because I know this has been an experience for me, and I know this is an experience so many people go through. And, I talk about living in two different worlds, the physical world, and then like the energetic and the emotional and the spiritual world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people have a really hard time when they're being faced in the physical world with something that is out of alignment with what they desire, right? So being in a controlling environment, but desiring that freedom and just not knowing where to go from there. There's like that dissonance. How do you navigate being in an environment that is not at all what you want? And instead of letting that define you, continuing to trust that inner knowing and move forward with that?
Well, first I'll say it wasn't always easy, and I've been far from perfect at it a million times in my life. And I think the overarching thing that has been radically, I don't know if I would say radically, like it broke apart everything for me, was dropping perfection. The need to be perfect, the need to have my life be pictured in a certain way, my marriage be pictured in a certain way, my business be look a certain way, my leadership be like, other people. Being able to break apart that and be really effing messy, quite frankly, and just throw everything to the wayside and know that everything that I have gone through and everything I'm currently going through, everything I'm probably going to continue to go through in life is really very normal. We especially in leaders and entrepreneurs and business owners, we put on this face like everything is great and amazing. And we want these picture perfect homes and this, certain bank account and this certain kind of love life, or, we want to be a certain kind of parent. Dropping that perfectionism and getting really raw and really honest and really vulnerable and just letting go of the need to be anything, for things to be a certain way, let me drop my own control. And when I dropped my own need to control what was happening in my life, which is still a journey, the world is infinite, right? So there's no arrival. Like our destination addiction as a society is killing us. This desire to arrive somewhere, to think that there's somewhere to be, that it looks a certain way, is killing us. It's literally choking the life out of all of us. And when I started to let go of that and started to drop that perfection around those things and looked at the truth that if I just own what's here right now, no matter what it looks like, and I take it for what it is, it allows me to have access to really powerful choices in my life and to realize that nothing in my external environment, not situations, not circumstances, not other people, not a destination that I'm either running from or running to, defines who I am or what my success or freedom looks like. All of a sudden, like barriers and boundaries and walls started just crashing around me, and the world opened up to me. It was pretty intense journey to go through that, but it's it's profound, and it's incredibly liberating and joyful on a regular basis, because what happens is no matter what I face now, I can always go back to that truth, that understanding that this doesn't define me, this doesn't chain me. I have a choice in the matter here, and the start of that is to get really present with what's happening, to take ownership of it, to realize that we're all equal, that I'm not any different than you, and you're not any different than me, and you all have our own stories and our own obstacles to overcome, and this too shall pass. I have choices in the matter, and when I make that choice, it liberates through the process.
Holy shit, there were so many takeaways. I highly recommend for anyone listening, rewind about 2 minutes and go listen to that whole thing again. I know this is a good interview when I'm sitting here taking notes on it. So, thank you. So many jewels in what you just said. So let's go back to that idea of radical ownership and responsibility. So I know it can be really common in like the self-development industry to be like, take responsibility, blah, 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 blah. What does that mean? Like, how do you take ownership? How do you take responsibility? How do you not keep projecting stuff on other people and making it their fault or their problem when we have a part in it as well, like you've said?
It's simple and complicated all at once. I think the simple answer is I always ask, if I am experiencing something, what is my part in it? And it really just is that simple. It's not easy to execute because we consistently don't want to feel the discomfort necessary when we look at our own eyes in the mirror looking back at us. That's where the truth actually lies. And what I mean by that is that we will constantly be faced with the truth of our own existence, the truth of our own responsibility. And every experience that we have, we created that. It's the science of it, right? It's cause and effect. Like I make this choice, is going to create this experience for me. And I have the power of that in the palm of my own hands. The execution of that, and the concept of that is super like, oh yes, I'm going to read a book about it, and I'm going to watch a podcast about it. I'm going to go to a seminar about it. But the execution is both simple and challenging at the same time. The reason it's simple is because it literally is just as simple as asking yourself, if I'm having an experience that's positive, how did I create this so I can replicate it, right? If I'm having an experience that is challenging, that I don't like, that I don't want to repeat, how am I responsible for that? And looking at that. And the challenging part comes when we don't want to look at that. We don't want to take ownership of that. It is sometimes even physically uncomfortable. Like, it's really deeply uncomfortable. I'm literally on day 6 of a master cleanse right now. And I promise you, I am facing some things that I really don't want to have to look at. And that's the other part. It never stops. Like, we want to get to this place, we often go through all kinds of development, right? Personal development, spiritual development, leadership development, because we want to get somewhere. And really, we want to get somewhere because we want the pain to stop. We want the discomfort to stop. We want the world to be pretty and perfect and beautiful and blissful all the time. And the truth is, that's not reality. We're never going to get to a place where that is. We live in a world where we have contrast, where we have challenges and successes, and they come in balance and harmony. Everything in the universe happens in equality. And while that's an absolute principle, it's not easy to execute. And we as human beings are designed, our brains are designed to protect us, right? This designed to keep us in the comfort zone and in this place of, I feel comfortable. So taking ownership, the reason it's so hard to execute is because it takes us out of that comfort zone and puts us in a zone that's super uncomfortable and almost disrupting to what we want and where we want to go. And it takes a lot of strength and courage and bravery and resiliency to consistently look at the eyes looking back at you in your own mirror. The unfortunate thing is, if we don't look at them, those eyes looking back at us in our own mirror, they'll find us in the eyes of other people, and consistently over and over again in relationships. And the universe whispers until we don't listen, and then it starts to scream. So one way or another, we're going to see the truth, and we're going to experience that discomfort and pain. I like to do it in a way where I feel like I'm co-creating it and I'm participating in it and I have a sense of power in it. And the only way I can do that is to do the uncomfortable things of really looking at what's looking at me, or what's mine to own.
I love that. And I think you stated it in just such a beautifully digestible way. So thank you. So this kind of relates to what you're going to be teaching in the Trinity. So for those of you listening, Jess Geist, who is also going to be on the podcast, is starting off the 3-day intensive sessions with a mindset reset. Shannon is then stepping in and doing the circle of power. And then I will be stepping in and helping people with the execution of all of it. So talk to us about the circle of power. What is the circle of power, and like, why does it matter, and what does it do for us?
Yeah, so the irony is that we spend about 80% of our time, so every human being, so about 80% of our day, on things that we have no control over and things that we do not have any power in. I think of power and control as two different ends of the same spectrum, by the way. So control is something that we try to get control of when we feel chaotic and out of control and we want to gain control of, but we actually have no control of. And so we spin our wheels, that hamster wheel, right? Like I feel like I'm running in a hamster wheel, or those patterns that keep repeating, that, you keep dating the same person, or you quit a job because you didn't like your boss and all of a sudden you're working for the same boss in a different company, right? That's that experience. And what that's an indicator of is that we're trying to control things that we actually have no control over, creating more chaos in our lives instead of less. And the circle of power really defines what we have power in, what we have the ability to influence and impact in our life that actually creates the kind of results that we want. And it's very distinct, different behaviors and very distinct focus that we have when we do either one of those things. And unfortunately, we only spend about 20% of our day in the circle of power. And unfortunately, I think that's just because we don't understand the distinct differences between the two. So I'm going to kind of highlight for people in a very experiential way how they're doing it in their own lives. So I'm actually going to take every single person who attends our talk really through that process, so they can see precisely where they are spending their time and their day and their relationships in areas that they have no control over, and how they can jump back into that circle of power and really take control of their lives back, and create the kind of results and relationships they really deeply desire, and then sustain them consistently from a place of intention and co-creation.
Okay, so I know we've been having these development meetings, but for some reason, as you're saying this right now, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited to go to that.
Yeah, I mean, well, think about it. Like, what could you do with 80% of your day back? If you could take 80% of your day that you're spinning your wheels on, and I could show you how to literally just capitalize on that and get even half of it back, and really intentionally feel like you have power in the relationships that you're in and creating the results that you experience, instead of feeling like, oh yeah, that happened and I kind of know how I did that, but I'm not sure how to repeat it. There's actually a science behind it. It's really not, again, it's not complicated, it's super simple, a little easy, not so easy to execute if you don't understand it. But once you understand how it works and how it operates, it's really easy to dive into. I wish I had known it before much of my trauma, by the way, but quite frankly, I learned it as a result of my trauma, as a result of experiencing extreme amounts of control and lack of self-worth, and doing all of these things while I was running a consulting company, consulting huge brands all over the world and working as a C-level executive, still going through that. And I think that's the misnomer we think of, is that we think it looks a certain way, but I actually find that every human being experiences this. I have C-level executives that I work with that are making $500,000 or more, driving amazing cars, going to multiple homes, and they're still experiencing that same experience. It's money and fame and wealth and property and all of those kinds of things don't preclude us from experiencing this in life.
Yeah, so brilliantly said. There was one nugget in there that I'm just so mind blown right now that I just can't even remember what it was. Well, I'm excited to go through that experience and cannot wait. Oh, I know what it was. I think this is the thing about contrast. And I listen to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and Abraham talks a lot about contrast and learning through contrast. And, while we're in it, it is not a fun experience. It never is, no matter what layer or level of contrast you're experiencing. But what I hear from you is that you've been able to find what gifts were lying within that contrast for you. And I honestly think that that's one of the biggest opportunities that any one of us has, is to just really dive into what is in this for me rather than what is doing this to me. And I just, what you've said today just rings so true of that.
Yeah. And I'd even say that I listened to her too, by the way. I absolutely love her work. And it is exactly where I got, the definite learnings and understandings of contrast. But it actually doesn't have to be comfortable. And I think this process has helped me feel freedom in the middle of contrast. So while it's just, uncomfortable and it's disruptive and it might feel painful, I equally feel a sense of power in the process. And I feel a sense of excitement because I know what's coming next. And I now know how to co-create in the middle of it. I know what my power is, and I know exactly how to execute it. I know what to do when I find myself in those chaotic, challenging, rapidly changing, places that I just don't want to be in. I'm like, yeah, can we go dance and play and laugh and go on vacation? But when I find myself in those moments, I now feel empowered because I have a process I can use. And I know exactly what to do to jump into that circle of power instead of feel like I'm out of control. And I think that's the distinct difference. It's not that out of control or rapidly changing or challenging or just, disrupting uncomfortable moments stop for me. But what has radically shifted for me is how I experience them now, and how I engage with them, and how I participate with them in a way that makes me feel free and liberated and empowered, and makes me watch, as a leader, it's caused me to watch the kind of impact or influence I'm having on people now as a result of being able to do that first and foremost for myself.
Beautiful. Yeah. We talked about this a little bit in our private development session this last week about the being able to hold space for both ends of the experience, like the opposing experiences at the same time. So being able to hold space for the chaos and the power concurrently, being able to hold space for the human experience we're having and the deeper soul knowing of how it's for us, not to us. Right. And so that for me has been a huge lesson this year in particular, and one that has obviously now taken me 12 years of spiritual practice and development to get to.
Not
for beginners, but even right now, we're recording this in the midst of the pandemic, and holding space for being in New York, the death and the sadness and the grief that's going on, while at the same time, all of these beautiful openings and opportunities and joy that's still existing in my life, and being able to hold space for both in the container rather than switching from one to the other. And so I love that you say that you can be in the experience of chaos and still be in your power.
Yeah. I mean, I think that right now, my 20-some years of practice, and you're right, it does not come overnight. It's not like, whoa, here we are, I'm there, right? But what you just said is precisely on point. It is that point of being able to hold space for both that I think the bliss starts to come in. That's the opening for bliss. That's the opening for freedom. That's the opening for what we really desire when we talk about success. When we say, I want to feel successful, we often don't one of the things I love about the questions you're asking on this podcast is really what's underneath that definition. What does that look like? And I think when you can hold both, and that concept I talked about dropping the perfection, that I need to be in one and not be in the other, but really find beauty in both and hold space for both, and be able to contain that in your emotional body, in your energetic body, in your mental body, all of those places is what really is where success lies for me.
Thank you for wrapping up the episode and putting bookends on it quite so nicely. I'm sitting here being like, wow, she just brought full circle everything. So we're done. That was brilliant. We didn't even plan that. Look at that. So first off, anyone that's felt inspired by this, Please, please, please come join us for the Trinity next week. It's happening all of next week. So mark your calendars. breeseely.com/Trinity will bring you to the page where you need to be to register. It's going to be amazing. Amazing. Also check out Jess's episode that is happening this week as well. I have both of them on this week to prep for the Trinity next week, which I'm so excited for. And how do people just find you and connect with you?
They just can go to powerintegrationcenter.com and they can learn all about our work around power and control and our research and learn more about what we do in the world.
Amazing. Well, first off, thank you for being a guest.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
And second, thank you for being you. And I'm just so grateful that our paths have crossed in the last few months. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for you. So thank you.
Yeah, ditto. I'm grateful for you too.
Wait, don't go yet. I wanted to say a quick thank you for joining me for this episode today. I am so incredibly grateful you are here. 2 last quick things. 1, I want to hear what's in your Success Diaries. So hop on over to Instagram, come find me at Bree Seeley to share with me what your definition of success is and how you're living that definition this week. Second thing, if you are an entrepreneur and you are looking to build or scale your tailor-made business to monetize your genius, I have a great free course I would love to share with you. You can grab it at breeseely.com/yes. This course is really going to help you do all of the necessary work to build and scale a business that is aligned with your unapologetic self. Much love to you today and every day. I will see you next week on the Success Diaries, which also reminds me, please be sure to subscribe so that you can get this in your notifications every single week. Bye for now, friends.